What's up, everybody? Welcome back to IGN Live at San Diego Comic-Con. I'm Damon. This is Greg. You can be a part of the conversation today just by tweeting at IGN with hashtag SDCC. We'll share your questions and comments here live on the show.
Yeah.
Right now, we are joined by legendary guitarist Slash, but we're not here to talk about sex or drugs or rock and roll. We're going to talk about a movie here today. Slash, thank you so much for coming by the show.
It's good to be here.
We're also joined by Roth, IGN's Roth.
Hello.
She will talk about sex, drugs, and rock.
Yes, that's all.
That's
she's
all
gonna
she's
talk
going
about.
to talk about.
That's what she knows.
I was a little thrown by that, Damon, because
I
that's
know,
all.
same here.
That's
all
all.
you. Okay.
That's all my
Hey, I'm
question.
always up for it.
So let's talk about this movie. I'm so excited. So this is Nothing Left to Fear. The first thing that we want to talk about is the basic premise of this movie, because this takes place in Stull, Kansas, which you guys may not know this, but
Oh, don't die.
Damon knows a lot about Kansas.
but apparently is a gateway to hell,
Yeah.
which people take very seriously.
Take it very seriously. It's a small town in Kansas, and there's all this internet folklore about it literally being the seventh gateway to hell. And so the story is based, Nothing Left to Fear is based there. And it's, the synopsis is there's a small church there, it's a small community, and the pastor of that church reaches out to a young family in the city to come move over to Stull and take up root there, because the father of this young family is a pastor himself, and he can take over the congregation so the older pastor can retire. And so they feel that it's the will of God that they've been asked to do this, so they move as a family of 5, 2 teenage daughters, a 10-year-old son, husband and wife, and they drive across the country, and they move into this really warm, gracious community of really nice country, simple folk, and it all looks, hunky-dory. And then one of them is entered against her will into a ritual that turns her into a vessel for a demon, which goes on and kills everybody in the family. And this is a ritual that has been going on for thousands and thousands of years, and is basically sacrificing the blood of the innocent to the demon from the seventh gateway. It opens a porthole, does this, and they close it, and that keeps them from raining terror on the earth for the rest of eternity. So it's a little deal that they have made with the devil that they do this. But the way that it all sort of comes, it's very creepy and it's very dark.
Yeah, and we do see the demon, I think, because I saw on your Facebook page, I saw some moles.
She's in her. Oh, you saw the hand. Yeah, she's on top of it. Yeah, so that was one of them transforms into the vessel. So she's actually, when the demon takes place, when he takes over the whole body, and then she turns into something else.
So I was curious when I saw those molds, is practical effects something that's kind of important for you in this work?
CGI is great, and we did use a little bit of it in this movie, but I've always been sort of the old school, practical effects. And the funny thing is a friend of mine works for Spectral Motion, who did the practical effects, and I knew him from Stan Winston. And so a good friend of mine actually did the hands and the mask and all that. It was very cool.
I know another thing that you had said was that you were a fan of Session 9 and sort of more psychological thriller. And these are the producers.
My producer partner produced Session 9.
Yeah. So talk to me about sort of why that's an important element for you to bring forward in the horror that you produce. I think
the whole motivation, I'm a huge horror fan from as long as I can remember, since I was like 3 or 4 years old. So it's always been there, but I didn't aspire to become a producer or anything. And so when I was given the opportunity, based on my knowledge of horror movies, and because I have such a passion for it, my thing, the motivation to get into this was to be able to bring back certain elements of what turned me on to horror in the first place. And that was a little bit more sort of intellectually stimulating, story-driven, character-driven horror, and what's more psychologically scary and what leaves more to the imagination. And I don't mind, gore in its right place, but there has to be a reason for it, not just gore for gore's sake. Although there's some people that do that brilliantly.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think of kind of like the rise of torture porn, the influx of torture porn?
For the most part, I just, maybe because I'm squeamish, it's like watching the Learning Channel for me. It's like watching Operations. It doesn't turn me on like the supernatural and like monsters and sort of fantastic villains that, So I think there's a fantasy element that's missing for me and all that,
This is a great heyday for horror, both on television and in film. There's also these like micro budgets that are happening more and more with big studios. Is that something, that direction you'd like slasher to go?
Yeah, we didn't get that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about the micro budgets. It's worth looking into, you know, because trying to pull the money together to make this movie was not easy, you know. But I'm definitely going to be doing more, so I'm going to look at whatever opportunities I can get to be able to facilitate the process.
Let's talk about the soundtrack a little bit, because you did the single with Miles Kennedy, and that's sort of how the movie got its title, is my understanding.
Well, it was called, original story was called Nothing to Fear, and then Miles and I wrote the song, and the lyric was Nothing Left to Fear, and then we all said, oh, that's even better, you know, so we changed it. But the score, you know, that's another thing. I love being involved in the filmmaking process, but obviously I can get my hands dirty doing the score. And so I wrote a bunch of music, and I worked with a composer named Nicholas O'Toole, who did all the sound design and did all the orchestration and turned some simple melodies into this very dramatic and thematic score. And so it's really cool. I'm very proud of it.
What was the process? Have you ever done a song for a movie before?
I've done a few, and it's interesting for me because every time I get into doing any kind of, be it a song, I scored in its entirety an indie movie from a director from Mexico a couple years ago, and that was the first full-length score that I ever did, and it brings out an element in my playing that doesn't exist when I'm writing for a band or something like that. So it's fascinating for me because I don't know where it comes from, and it's really because you start in your mind picturing a real story and the characters in it, and you just sort of go in that direction, and it makes, for me personally, it makes me write completely different.
I know we talked about this a little bit outside, but you had spoken with Rob Zombie a while ago before he said he's done with horror.
Well, I was working on this movie, and we were doing some shows together, and so knowing that obviously he's been directing, and I've seen a couple of his movies, and so we talked about it'd be cool if we did sort of that, you know, he directed and I produced kind of thing. But I don't think he's doing horror anymore. I mean, maybe I'll talk him into it. Maybe I'll find an amazing script that's sure to be, you know,
I feel like that would be a
knees, as they say.
pretty smashing mashup.
But he's a
right
good
there.
guy, so it'd be fun to work with him.
Does there seem to be kind of a natural affinity or link between the horror genre and rock and metal?
Definitely. There's something about the dark side is very much a part of rock and roll, and horror is all about that. So they mix well together. You know?
I also want to talk, so what's up for slasher films? What's next? I mean, after this film?
I'm looking at stories. Yeah, I'm very particular about it. I'm not just doing horror for horror's sake. It's got to be something that's really that catches me, and I can envision how this is going to look on film. And it's got to be a really well written story, and it's got to have great characters, and it's got to have great either monster or something along those lines for the kid in me, you know. And that's what I'm in the hunt for right now. So.
Yeah, well, listen up, people. If you want to, you could go ahead and tweet Slash your horror ideas. I'm
Well, now you just open him up to a lawsuit. He produces something even remotely close to the tweet.
No, I've actually got a couple that I'm looking at right now. So.
Are they the same kind of tone?
No, after having done this one, it's, you know, I'm not going to do anything similar. I'm going to go on to do something else. And it's like I'm sort of getting my legs in this whole thing, and I think we've done a great job with this first one. And Anthony Leonardi is a great director, and it's his first feature, so it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. But the next thing I'm going to want to do is going to be something completely different, but along the same lines of a story and fleshing out the characters. And
with a supernatural bent as well? Yeah, that's interesting because the biblical element is so popular in horror. Why do you think that is?
It's just good and evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you said that, I realized what you said. It doesn't have to be necessarily supernatural, because when I was talking about monsters and stuff, there's a part of me that would love to do something that's not necessarily supernatural and comes from something else. You know, so I'm open. It doesn't have to be religious, and it doesn't have to be mythological or anything like that. So we'll see.
How about in terms of
I don't know what I'm doing.
You don't know what you're doing?
Exactly.
You're doing pretty well for having no idea. I mean, when you talk about just getting your feet wet in this space, like Did music prepare you well for this? I mean, in a way.
Well, I mean, there's some elements of being in the entertainment industry that prepare you a little bit for this, but the film industry is definitely different. It's slow. It doesn't move until the money's actually being spent. Then it moves very fast. But the rest of it is very slow and it's very hit and miss, and you can develop something all the way to the point of finishing it and then have it get tossed, which is horrific concept to me. You know, with music, you can give it away. You know, but the movie business is a lot trickier, and it's been an interesting ride just to do this one movie. It's about 3 years in the making from its inception to now. You know.
Is that a process that you like, or is it very frustrating?
It's frustrating. I mean, I had to miss the shoot of the movie just because it just kept getting back. The shooting just kept getting backed up and backed up and backed up, and I had it all mapped out schedule-wise. And next thing you know, it's filming, and I'm on the road, right? So I saw 1 day of filming. So it has a lot of unpredictable qualities that even more than rock and roll. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to quit my day job to become a filmmaker, but I'm going to keep doing this because I like it. You know, it's very intriguing. Yeah.
So Nothing Left to Fear opens October 4th at select theaters, is that correct?
It opens in Los Angeles and I think New York, Boston, Chicago, and Philadelphia. And then almost simultaneously it comes out on VOD and DVD.
October 8th, right? VOD on October 8th?
4th.
Well, October 4th in limited, and I think it's 8th.
Oh, for
VOD.
VOD.
Yeah,
you're right. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I can't wait to see it. Slash, thank you so much for coming by.
Yeah, man, it's good hanging out with you guys.
Cool. Enjoy the rest of the con.
Cheers.